One hidden dial separates average workers from $400,000 strategists. Most people use generative AI like a magic 8 ball. They type a prompt, cross their fingers, and hope for the best. But the elite engineers at places like OpenAI and Anthropic do not hope. They tune. I am going to show you how to simulate this dial on basic interfaces like ChatGPT without using any code. This is a full temperature in AI explained masterclass. It is the mathematical lever that controls whether your AI is a creative genius or a stone cold factual analyst. First, I will show you why this one setting is the key to that $183,000 average salary. Then, we will dive into the specific configurations for the big four tools: ChatGPT GPT 5.2, Claude Opus 4.6, Google Gemini 3 Pro, and Meta Llama 4 Maverick. Finally, I am going to give you a word for word interview script that will make you look like a seasoned AI architect, even if you have never written a line of code. Make sure you stay for that script at the end. It is the ultimate way to prove you are not just a user, you are a strategist. Let us start with the stakes. Right now, the average AI engineer's salary in the US has climbed to $183,420. In high stakes roles, that number jumps past 450,000. You might think those people are just better at coding. They are not. They just understand the underlying mechanics of how models think. According to the latest Work Trend Index from Microsoft and LinkedIn, 75% of knowledge workers are now using generative AI at work. Only 32% of companies are actually providing training on parameters like temperature or top P. This means if you understand what I am about to tell you, you are instantly ahead of two-thirds of the global workforce. Most people are flying blind on autopilot. They leave the most powerful setting on its default. That is why their outputs often feel average or AI sounding. If you do not control the temperature, you are just a replaceable prompt muncher. And in the 2026 job market, prompt munchers are being replaced by the tools themselves. Try your first platform method you can use right now, even if you do not have access to an API. If you are using the standard ChatGPT, GPT 5.2 interface, or Claude Opus 4.6, you can actually simulate temperature through your natural language instructions. Instead of just asking for a summary, tell the AI, be strictly factual and deterministic. Use zero creative variance. That effectively drops the internal temperature to zero. If you need a brainstorm, tell it. Use a high degree of randomness and creative variance. That pushes the dial up. This matters because it controls the boundary between hallucination and accuracy. When you are coding or doing financial research, a high temperature is your worst enemy. It makes the AI invent things. But when you are writing a screenplay, a low temperature makes the AI boring and repetitive. To move from a casual user to a probability architect, you need to understand exactly what is happening under the hood when you move that invisible dial. Think of the AI brain not as a database of facts, but as a vast shifting map of word choices. Every time you send a prompt, the model is not looking up an answer. It is playing a high speed game of predict the next word. For every single token it generates, it sees a list of candidates. If you ask it to complete the sentence, the capital of France is, the word Paris might have a 99% probability. The word the might have a 0.5% probability. And the word banana has a probability so low it is practically invisible. This is where temperature in AI explained becomes your most powerful tool. When you set the temperature to zero, you are telling the AI, always pick the candidate with the highest probability, no exceptions. This makes the model deterministic. If you run the same prompt 10 times at temperature zero, you will get the exact same answer 10 times. Think of this like a paved road. It is safe, it is direct, and it is impossible to get lost. As you turn that dial up, moving towards 0.7 or 1.2, you are giving the AI permission to wander off the pavement and into the woods. You are telling it, it is okay to pick the underdog. Give me the word that only had a 5% chance of being right. That wandering is what we call creativity in marketing, but in engineering we call it variance. Take the case of Morgan Stanley. They deployed an internal AI advisor using the GPT 5.2 architecture for over 16,000 financial advisors. Imagine a financial advisor asking for the tax implications of a specific bond. In that world, creativity is a liability. You do not want the AI to wander into the woods and invent a tax code that does not exist. Morgan Stanley utilized a zero temperature strategy for their document retrieval. By killing the AI ability to be creative, they forced it to stay on the paved road of their internal proprietary data. The result? They reduced advisor research time from hours to seconds while maintaining a staggering 98% factual accuracy rate. They did not need a genius assistant, they needed a deterministic one. I have put the exact temperature settings for 15 different job roles, from legal analysts to creative directors, into a parameter cheat sheet. You can grab that sheet at the link in the description to use during your next project, so you never have to guess whether you should be at zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.8. Before we move on, I want to know your current workflow. Do you usually stick with the default settings, or do you manually adjust your prompts for every task? Type default or manual in the comments. Precision pays. A major study by Stanford Center for Research on Foundation Models found that in summarization tasks, simply setting the temperature to 0 increased factual consistency by 22% compared to the standard default of zero point 0.7. That 22% is the difference between a report your boss trusts and a report that gets you flagged for spreading misinformation. Mastering this requires balancing the intellectual tension. Can you actually make an AI 100% accurate? The honest answer is no. Even at temperature 0, the model is still just predicting the next word based on its training data. It is just that at 0, it is being as careful as it possibly can. Being a probability architect means knowing when to be careful and when to be wild. Hallucinations are not always bugs. Sometimes they are features. If you are writing a sci-fi novel, you want the AI to pick the banana word occasionally. You want it to wander into the woods. Knowing the theory is one thing, but seeing what happens when you push these models to their limit is where the real money is made. You would not use a sledgehammer to fix a luxury watch, and you certainly should not use a high-temperature creative model to debug a critical Python script. To be a true strategist, you have to understand that not all models handle heat the same way. Let us look at the current landscape of the Big Four. First, we have Claude Opus 4.6. In the world of high-stakes precision, think legal contracts or medical coding, Claude is the undisputed favorite. Its temperature settings are incredibly sensitive. When you set Claude to zero point 0, it becomes truly deterministic. It is packing a massive 2 million token context window, which is essentially the ability to read several thick novels worth of data at once without losing focus. But here is the mentor warning. At those ultra low temperatures, Opus 4.6 can become a bit preachy. If your prompt even grazes a safety guardrail, it might give you a lecture instead of an answer. Then you have the versatile powerhouse, ChatGPT GPT 5.2. If you want to move beyond the casual user tier, you need to be using developer mode or system instructions. This is where you can explicitly lock in your temperature via the API or custom instructions. GPT 5.2 is brilliant for generalist tasks, but it has a very specific breaking point. In this architecture, pushing the temperature above 1.2 often leads to what we call word salad. The model starts looping phrases or inventing gibberish. It is like the AI has had one too many drinks. It is talkative, but it has stopped making sense. Google Gemini 3 Pro is your integration specialist, living directly inside your Google Workspace. It is great for analytical tasks, but it tends to prioritize safety over creativity. Even when you crank the temperature up in AI Studio, the outputs can sometimes feel a bit bland. On the other end of the spectrum is Meta Llama 4 Maverick. This is the open source king, because you can host it locally on AWS or Azure for about 50 cents to $2 an hour. You have total control over every single parameter, temperature, top P, and even repetition penalties. Imagine a race between two instances of Llama 4 Maverick. We give them both the same complex coding prompt. The first instance is set to the coding standard, a temperature between zero point 0 and zero point 0.1. The second instance is cranked up to a wild 1.5. The zero point 0.1 version is surgical. It maps out the logic, imports the correct libraries, and produces clean executable code. But the 1.5 version? It starts off strong, then it takes a sudden disastrous turn. It begins hallucinating non existent libraries, and then it devolves into a repetitive loop of syntax errors. It is a complete collapse of logic. This is why the coding standard is a non negotiable rule for engineers. For logic based work, you stay at zero point 0.1. Any higher, and you are literally asking the AI to lie to you. What is the weirdest hallucination you have ever seen an AI produce? Share the funniest or most frustrating one below so we can see which models are the most prone to wandering. Even with the most powerful tools in the world, there is a trap waiting for you. It is a trap that has ended careers and cost companies millions. It all stems from one simple mistake: trusting the default settings. I recently consulted for a high performing marketing team tasked with a high stakes slogan launch for a global beverage brand. They were using GPT 5.2, and because they wanted something fresh and edgy, they left the temperature at the default setting, which usually hovers around zero point 0.7. They thought the AI was thinking creatively, but because the temperature was too high for a brand that required strict adherence to a specific voice, the model started to wander too far into the woods. It began producing slogans that were wild and off brand. In one instance, it actually hallucinated a brand value that the company had spent a decade trying to distance itself from. The team did not catch it in time. They presented the work to the client, and the fallout was immediate. They did not just lose the account, they missed their quarterly bonus, and more importantly, they looked like amateurs who did not understand their own tools. They were users, not architects. This is the reality of what critics call the stochastic parrot objection. The argument is that increasing temperature does not actually make the AI creative, it just makes it more statistically random. When you turn that dial up, you are not giving the AI a soul. You are just telling it to take bigger risks with the next word it picks. If you do not provide the soul by tuning the dial and providing the right constraints, you are just rolling dice with your professional reputation. If you want to be the person who fixes these disasters instead of the one who causes them, hit subscribe. We break down the strategy behind the tech every week so you can stay ahead of the curve. Be honest. Have you ever accidentally sent an AI generated email or report without checking it for hallucinations first? Drop a yes or no below. We have all been there. The difference between that failed marketing team and a company like Klarna is massive. In 2024, Klarna implemented an AI assistant to handle customer service queries. They specifically tuned their models to a low temperature setting of approximately zero point 0.2. They knew that in customer service, factual accuracy and adherence to company policy are non negotiable. By keeping the temperature low, they ensured the AI would not hallucinate a refund policy or get creative with the customer data. The results were staggering. That AI assistant performed the work of 700 full time agents, handled over 2 million conversations, and improved resolution accuracy by 25% compared to human agents. That is the power of being a strategist. With the generative AI market projected to reach $1.3 trillion by 2032, the world does not need more people who can just write prompts. It needs people who can manage the hallucination trap. It needs people who understand that a high temperature is a marketing multiplier when used correctly, but a career killer when used blindly. Now we have reached the moment you have been waiting for, the grand payoff. Now that you have seen temperature in AI explained through the lens of a strategist, I want to show you how to turn this dial into a competitive weapon. This is what I call the marketing multiplier. It is exactly how companies like Jasper AI help their enterprise clients achieve a 3 times increase in content variations while cutting their time to publish by 40%. When you are stuck on a headline, a slogan, or a creative concept, do not just run one prompt and hope for the best. Instead, run the same prompt 3 times using a tiered temperature strategy. First, set it to zero point 0.5 for your safe bet. It stays close to the brand guidelines and produces reliable, high quality results. Next, bump it up to zero point 0.8 for your creative sweet spot, where the AI starts to make those unexpected, human like connections. Finally, push it to 1.2 for your wild card. Most of what it produces will be nonsense, But every now and then it will spit out a phrase or an angle so unique that no human would have dared to think of it. By combining the best elements of all three, you are directing a symphony of probabilities. Here is a challenge for you. Take your next creative prompt and run it at zero point 0.2, zero point 0.8, and 1.2. Come back to this comment section and tell us which setting gave you the best result. This level of sophistication is currently driving a 30.7% year-over-year increase in job postings requiring advanced prompt engineering. Companies in 2026 are not looking for people who can talk to robots. They are looking for people who can tune them. Imagine you are sitting across from a hiring manager for a high-stakes AI strategist role. They look at your resume, they see AI literacy, and they ask you the one question that most candidates fail. How do you actually ensure the quality and reliability of the AI outputs you generate? Most people will give a generic answer. They will talk about writing clear instructions or iterating on the prompt. But you are going to say something different. You are going to prove you are a parameter strategist. You are going to look them in the eye and say, I do not just prompt, I tune. I understand that the effectiveness of a model depends entirely on its configuration for the specific task at hand. For example, if I am tasked with data extraction or code generation, I lock the temperature to zero point 0.0 or zero point 0.1 to ensure a one-to-one mapping and factual consistency. But if I am developing a brand persona or engaging in role play, I push the temperature higher, usually around zero point 0.9 to avoid that repetitive AI sounding dialogue and ensure the output feels authentic and varied. That one sentence does more than any portfolio ever could. It tells the hiring manager that you understand the underlying architecture of models like GPT 5.2 and Claude Opus 4.6. It shows them that you know how to prevent hallucinations before they happen. It proves that you are the person who can save them from disaster. This is the bridge to that $183,000 average salary. The market is currently flooded with users who are terrified of being replaced. When you master the temperature dial, you stop being someone who uses the tool and start being the person who architects the solution. You move from the 32% of workers who are just winging it to the elite tier of engineers who are commanding $500,000 compensation packages. We started this journey by looking at a hidden dial, a setting that most people ignore because they think it is just about randomness. But now you know the truth. Temperature is the lever that balances the paved road of precision with the wild woods of creativity. Whether you are using the zero temperature strategy of Morgan Stanley to protect financial data or the marketing multiplier to revolutionize a brand voice, you now have the playbook to win. Temperature is only the first lever. To truly master the probability map of a large language model, you need to understand its twin, sibling, top P. While temperature controls the heat of the choices, top P controls the pool of choices the AI is allowed to pick from. If you want to complete your transformation from a prompt muncher to a true AI architect, you need to see how these two settings work together to create the perfect output. Click the video on your screen right now to master top P versus temperature, and I will see you in the next masterclass.